evening. My name is Tara Shand, and I am the Public Information Officer with the City of Red Deer's Emergency Operations Center. Tonight, we will provide you with a briefing through Facebook Live. We are sharing this information with you in this format in the interest of social distancing as we work to move our information sharing online. I do want to acknowledge that we have fielded a number of requests for sign language as part of these daily briefings, and we are exploring ways to facilitate this option in hopes that we can make it available in the future. This evening, Mayor Beer and Emergency Operations Director Karen Mann will provide you an update on our municipal response to COVID-19. Mayor Beer.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us as we respond as a community to the new normal that we find ourselves navigating in. I'll begin by noting that the City of Red Deer continues to closely monitor and respond to the COVID-19 situation, which changes and evolves, as you've all noted by now, on a daily and often even on an hourly basis. As you are likely aware by now, today our provincial government declared a public health emergency. The City of Red Deer, as noted yesterday in our briefing, declared a local state of emergency yesterday. The declaration empowers the province, under the Public Health Act, to better respond to the COVID-19 pandemic to ensure the health and safety of all Albertans. But it also means that we will see significant changes here in our very own Red Deer and across the province that will no doubt have a resounding impact on the daily routines and lives of our citizens and local businesses. We heard from the Premier today that all mass gatherings are now limited to no more than 50 people. With this decision in mind, the City of Red Deer Emergency Operations Center has made the decision to limit public access to additional city facilities, including the public interfaces at Civic Yards, Red Deer City RCMP, and City Hall. Please note that these facilities remain open and staff continue to work. We are just limiting access on the public interface. This is in response to and in alignment with a provincial protocol effective immediately. These restrictions are, of course, in addition to the closure of recreation and cultural facilities, which we had previously announced. I would like to emphasize and continue to reiterate the fact that we are committed to maintaining essential services. Essential services such as fire and ambulance, RCMP, water, wastewater, and water, wastewater, as well as waste management, to name just a few examples. And we will update on other service modifications as decisions are made by the Emergency Operations Center, and we will make sure to include any of those changes noted in our daily briefing. The City acknowledges, and on behalf of City Council would like to say that we deeply share the concerns that our community will have about the resounding impact that today's provincial decisions will have on our citizens and businesses in our community. This is no doubt a new normal for us. And we do not know how long these restrictions will be in place, but we are looking ahead and thinking about all potential impacts. Both the federal and provincial governments have announced economic relief packages that will hopefully help stimulate our local economy and support individuals and businesses. The Emergency Operations Center is actively working with those orders of government to get the questions of our citizens answered on these specific items. We know that navigating through government bureaucracy can be challenging for our citizens at the best of times. And by tomorrow, we hope to have specific contact information available to our citizens with how to navigate through the many, many questions that you have that actually are questions best directed to all three orders of government. So we will make sure to follow up on that tomorrow. The priority of the city's Emergency Operations Center is on virus mitigation, public health, and safety. But the Emergency Operations Center is also looking ahead to potential options to help mitigate the financial consequences of this pandemic to local households and businesses. And again, once we have taken decisions on some of those specific initiatives, we will brief you. I want to reiterate the importance of collectively and individually doing our part to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in Red Deer and in our province. Protecting and keeping Red Deerians safe and healthy is, always will be, our #1 priority. We are continuing to work closely with Alberta Health Services and other local agencies and orders of government to ensure that our community response is in alignment with our counterparts in the provincial and federal governments. We also know that people are looking for information on the number of cases that have occurred and are occurring in our province, in our region, and our city. However, I will note this information is absolutely critical for our citizens to have. But the city is not the health authority, and it is important that our citizens have accurate and timely information and the most up-to-date information. So it is imperative that our citizens watch the daily briefings from Alberta's Chief Medical Officer, or go specifically on the AHS website. You can go to AHS/COVID if you want that specific information about the number of cases in the province and the status of those cases. We also know that people have questions about things like unemployment insurance. And while this specific area does not follow under the city's decision-making jurisdiction, we encourage you still to call our city's call center, and they will do their best to help redirect you to the resources that you may need from other orders of government. We encourage our residents to go online. The city has a specific landing page on reddeer.ca with respect to COVID-19. Or to reach out through us through the City of Red Deer call center at 342-8111. They will do their absolute best to answer any questions you have pertaining to city operations and to help you navigate the system and try to put you in touch with other orders of government if your questions necessitate that. The city's call center is open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and staffed with people who can answer your non-emergency questions about city services and policies as they relate to COVID-19. Red Deer and Red Deerians are resilient. In challenging times, we either pull together or pull apart. And I am very confident that our city will choose to unite and pull together. We're already starting to bear witness to some incredible stories emerging. People who are safely, I should note, taking it upon themselves to shovel snow for their neighbors or entire neighborhood in one specific street. Fill up the refrigerators of neighbors who are returning from travel, or from those neighbors and family members who they know are in self-isolation. Our community has banded together before and pulled through many challenging times, and I have no doubt that we will do so again. I will now turn it over to Karen Mann, our Emergency Operations Center Director. She will have some specific operational updates to share with you regarding city facilities and the changes and decision-making which transpired today from the Emergency Operations Center, and following that I'll take questions from local media. Thank you.
Good evening, Red Deer, and thank you for joining us as we provide you with updates this evening from the city's Emergency Operations Center. This COVID-19 pandemic remains a fluid situation, and information is changing quickly and often. For that reason, your Emergency Operations Center in the city of Red Deer is working around the clock to take measures that will protect our citizens and keep them informed. Our decisions are made on the recommendations of the province's top health officials, which speaks directly to the reason why you heard Mayor Veer speak about the additional closures of some of our city facilities today. These measures are being taken in the interest of social distancing, while working to maintain continuity in new ways that is so critical and essential so that our business can continue and that we can continue to serve our citizens. Effective tomorrow, the city's Civic Yards facility and city departments located in the professional building, including Human Resources, Corporate Services, and Community Services, will close to the public. The city's Land and Economic Development Office will also be closed to the public. City Hall will remain open at this time. However, we're strongly encouraging our residents to find ways to do business with the city online and over the phone. City business at City Hall will be limited to the main floor only, and we encourage our customers to refrain from coming to City Hall if you are sick or unless you absolutely must do business with us at this time. Please call us before you come to City Hall so we can determine if there's an alternate way that we can facilitate this transaction. This will allow us to help protect you and protect our staff. In addition, effective tomorrow, the following changes will take place at the downtown RCMP detachment. The front counter at the detachment will be closed to the public. However, the RCMP are still here to serve you. They will be accepting all reports, including vehicle collisions and information related to investigations, as well as reports of crimes and suspicious activity from the public over the phone or via email. To make a report to the RCMP in the City of Red Deer, call 403-343-5575 or email kreddeer@rcmp-grc.gc.ca. This is for non-emergency reports between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. 7 days a week. All of the information to make contact with the RCMP will also be posted on the city's website. So if you've missed the number or the email, those will be available on our website. In an emergency or to report a crime in progress, as always, call 911. Always indicate to the dispatcher if you have cold or flu-like symptoms so that they can alert the first responders, and we can keep our first responders working in the community and safe. Non-essential fingerprinting and criminal record checks are canceled at this time. These closures are necessary steps in minimizing the potential spread of COVID-19 in our community, but we know that they're challenging and difficult for our residents. The City of Red Deer is here for you, and our call center is up and running from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. for residents to make non-emergency inquiries about city policies and city facilities. That number is 403-342-8111. Residents are reminded not to attend any public place if they're feeling ill and to self-isolate per the direction of Dr. Hinshaw. In addition, we remind people to consider the following. Practice social distancing. Use good hygiene practices such as hand washing. Avoid touching your face, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands. And clean and disinfect surfaces that are frequently touched. Stay at home or away from others if you're feeling ill. And keep at least 1 meter distance between yourself and anyone who's coughing or sneezing. We continue to direct residents to Alberta Health Services for their health-related questions. Their information is updated regularly and it's available 24 hours a day at www.ahs.ca. It's important that we all listen to and follow the instructions provided to us by our local health authorities and officials and play our part in reducing the spread of COVID-19 in our community and across the province. We thank you for your time today, and with that, I'll hand it back to Tara Shan for questions from our local media.
So to our local media, we do understand we are having a couple of technical challenges. We're still going to field those questions from you with the hopes that we're able to fix these technical issues on the back end.
So we have Lana with the Red Deer Advocate. Lana, do you have any initial questions for either Karen Mann or Mayor Tara Beer?
Yes, the line was a little bit garbled, so I wasn't able to catch exactly which departments were located in the professional building and will now be closed to the public.
So thank you for your question. The professional building houses the City of Red Deer's Human Resources Department, as well as our Community Services Directorate, our Social Planning Department, and our Financial Services and Legal Services Departments on the 6th floor.
So, legal services. Okay. Thanks. Also, there was one other case of the virus in the central zone, and I was wondering whether you got any information about whether that is in Red Deer.
So Alberta Health Services continues to update their information on their website, and because we are not the local health authority, we are not going to be reporting on those numbers, but rather directing the media and the public to seek that information at ahs.ca/COVID.
I'm wondering if our local city officials are concerned that Edmonton and Calgary are able to know how many cases are in their municipality, but for some reason, Red Deer is not allowed to know that because they just lump us in with everyone else in Central Zone.
So while that is a challenge, it is important for Red Deerians to understand that the City of Red Deer is working very closely with Alberta Health Services, and we do have faith in our partnership with Alberta Health Services in the Central Zone and across the province, that they are sharing information with us that we need in order to keep our residents safe and healthy. So the fact that they have not confirmed a case directly to us in the City of Red Deer gives us confidence that there are no known cases of COVID-19 within the City of Red Deer at this time. However, we would continue to direct people to Alberta Health Services to get that information officially.
Okay, thank you. Was that Karen that was speaking just now?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I'm just wondering whether you've made any headway in, yesterday you were mentioning that you're looking at ways of addressing and protecting the shelter population. Have you made any headway in this area? Yeah?
Absolutely. So with the conversations that took place today with the province, we have made headway on both alternate shelter space and isolation space for people with no fixed address. Those conversations have been made in consultation with our agency partners as well as with Alberta Health Services and other related provincial ministries. There will be more information coming in the near future on that as we continue to implement those processes. However, with the Premier's announcement today of a provincial health state of emergency, additional access to funds has been made available for our social agencies, and we're just working through and understanding what that looks like for the City of Red Deer. And Mayor Beer has...
Right, like in terms of trying to protect the staff as well, or?
Absolutely. So just like the City of Red Deer is working to keep our staff safe throughout this COVID-19 situation, we know that our agency partners are very concerned about ensuring the health and safety of not only their patrons and guests, but also their staff. So that is of the foremost focus for all of those who are working in those frontline service positions in our vulnerable populations. Okay. I think Mayor Beer,
sorry?
Mayor Beer had another comment as well.
I'm just wondering, like, you're coming through a little bit garbled, so I'm just going to repeat my understanding of what you just said, just make sure that I'm correct. You were saying that you are now working to set up an alternative shelter space that will include an isolation space, and to accommodate that, is that at the local shelter or?
So there are two different conversations. One is around isolation space. Should a person with no fixed address require somewhere to self-isolate?
Right.
So that is a function of Alberta Health Services.
Okay.
And so that is something that we're working with them to make sure that they have that capacity available within our community, should it be necessary moving forward. And then the other side of the conversation is related to shelter space and ensuring that our shelter space remains appropriate for the number of users who require shelter space in our community. So as we go through this situation, we want to ensure that shelter space is healthy and safe. And so should people need additional shelter space to allow for social distancing, those are the types of considerations that the social agencies are working with our Emergency Operations Center on throughout the day and throughout this evening as we move forward.
Okay, so my understanding then is that this is still in the state of trying to be worked out, that you haven't completely solved all the dilemmas that you have regarding trying to provide more space and social distancing space, right?
We are continuing to work actively on that issue with our social agencies and the province.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just further to that question, Lana, with respect to vulnerable populations, on the briefing call with the Premier yesterday, vulnerable populations was a specific topic of conversation between the Premier and the regional hub mayors in Alberta. The Premier had, and of course it was recently announced about the additional funding. So Karen's addressed the question around shelter space, and obviously declaring the provincial public health emergency and the local state of emergency then allow for more flexibility in responding to that. And so I think Karen has sufficiently addressed that we're working closely with her province and agencies with respect to shelter. But we are still working through our processes. The Premier announced the additional funding. The funding will likely flow through FCSS, and we'll be working on that because there's many agencies that provide social supports to people in the community, and obviously there will be need for enhanced supports. So that money is in order to support vulnerable populations.
So the additional funding would maybe help in terms of trying to find a larger space so that there is more distancing and that kind of thing?
No. Again, separating it, shelter, that would be probably a specific conversation specific to shelter and any specific funding that may be required for that. But again, and then the other funding in terms of agency support, that would come through FCSS.
Okay, so the FCSS would be in terms of protecting the workers then, is that right?
No, so the FCSS funding will be other community agencies that are supporting vulnerable populations. I'm a bit reluctant to use an example because FCSS will have to adjudicate on that. But I can think of examples of community agencies that perhaps provide delivery services to seniors, and they will see the need for an enhanced hours and enhanced deliveries. That would provide operational funding, quick operational funding for them. So that would be an example of that. With respect to shelter, and the particular challenges around social distancing there, I'll defer that to Karen because that was the topic at emergency operations. But we would work with the government in terms of, the fact is, when we're in public health emergency provincially and local states of emergency, we need to act decisively, and then we just code them all under COVID, and we worry about the provincial funding for that when the emergency settles.
Okay, regarding businesses that might have to close temporarily, or citizens might be on EI temporarily, should they call the 811 number, or are there more appropriate numbers to call if they're concerned about, how they're going to make do over the next month or two?
So I'll start and answer that, and then I'll defer to Karen on that. One of the great challenges, and I mentioned that in my formal remarks, we know that it's hard for citizens to navigate government bureaucracy, even in ideal times. And it's often confusing for people to delineate between what is a municipal, provincial, or federal jurisdiction. And obviously, as a local government, we want to be responsive to the needs of our community and answer as many questions as we have. Our hope is that tomorrow we'll have more visual information helping citizens delineate who to call regarding what particular questions that they may have. But in the meantime, what we are saying, people can call. I believe Service Canada has a 1-800 number that they've issued. They are encouraging people to apply online. So we are encouraging people to go directly to Service Canada if they're aware of that. But in the meantime, if people have questions, they can call the city call center. Our staff there will try to route people to the best of their ability, and we can go from there. But we hope to have more mechanics to that by tomorrow, because obviously the economic impact is starting to resonate.
Okay, so
we were going to move to
number. Sorry.
I was just going to say.
Would Service Canada be able to help individuals or also businesses?
Well, I can't speak for Service Canada, again, because that's within the federal order of government. But Service Canada, either online or with their call center, that's the number that we have been given to direct citizens to. With respect to EI specifically, they have encouraged people to apply online. I would fully expect, given the fact that it's a global pandemic and the economic consequences are across the country, I would fully expect that they would be inundated with calls, but I can't comment on their level of service. I would suggest directing that to the Member of Parliament.
We have other members of media on the line, and I'm going to switch it over to another outlet here. So hang on at the end if you have more questions. I believe we have Troy from RD News Now. Troy, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just going through my notes here. You mentioned that the services are going to stay the same for the most part, I assume, and you did mention waste collection in there, right? Like garbage and recycling pickups and such.
Hi Troy, thanks for the question. I'll start it again. We'll defer to Ms. Mann on that. So as I noted, the city's committed to maintaining essential services, and essential services being really those core operational services. So you know, if you pick up the phone and call 911 for fire or ambulance, you will get a response. Obviously, if you call for city or CMP, water safety is obviously will continue. So water, wastewater treatment, waste management, all of those services will continue. Where the Emergency Operations Center, the focus right now is virus mitigation. So where we're seeing modifications of service is where there's strong interfaces with the public or with larger gathering sites. So that's why we're seeing the sequencing of closures, and then we're committing daily to updating on that. So today's update, of course, the modification of some of the public interfaces, but again, emphasizing that staff are still working in service to our public. It's just the mechanisms by which they interface with the public that's a bit different. But I'll turn it over to Karen.
So thank you, Mayor Beer, and thank you, Troy, for the question. Just to reiterate, the Emergency Operations Center's primary focus is ensuring that our essential services remain viable, they remain accessible, and that they do not have any interruptions throughout this COVID-19 situation. So that is our priority right now, and that includes all of the services that Mayor Beer has already referenced. And as we move forward, we will continue to work with our departments to understand where there are opportunities for us to create new or different ways to serve the public throughout this COVID-19 situation. And if we find ways to do business with the public and we have to change our levels of service in other areas, then we will make those changes as they're required, following the direction of the Medical Officer of Health.
Okay, sounds good. I know, just circling back to shelter and vulnerable citizens and that funding, just to clarify, so whatever portion of the $60 million that was announced today that comes to Red Deer, that's going to go to FCSS and funnel out from there to the different agencies that deal firsthand?
Thanks for that question, Troy. So as we continue to navigate the conversations around vulnerable populations and specifically our homeless populations in shelter, our focus continues to be on the health and safety of the staff in those areas, as well as on serving our vulnerable populations throughout this COVID-19 situation. So in reference to the dollars, my understanding from the announcement from the province today was that they were going to be freeing up additional dollars to flow through to municipalities through our FCSS programs, and those funds would be available to community agencies that are serving vulnerable populations in our communities already that may be experiencing higher volumes or staffing impacts as a result of this situation. So it's an opportunity for the social agencies in our community to access some additional funds. However, at this time, with the announcement just being made earlier this afternoon, we aren't sure exactly how much money or how exactly that's going to flow, but we have been told that it will be flowing to the municipalities through FCSS by the end of the month.
Okay, sounds good. And maybe this is more for Mayor here, but in addition to additional financial resources and that sort of thing, has the city, or is the city considering in terms of asking the province or the federal government in terms of these aid packages? Is it mostly financial help that you're looking for from other forms of government, or are there other forms of direct assistance you'd like to see come down as well?
So I think there's a couple answers to that question. The time to plan for an emergency is not during an emergency. And I will say the City of Red Deer takes emergency management and planning very seriously. And so, and we have for a number of years. So the city has already planned multiple times for business continuity. It has engaged in pandemic planning. So, you know, I think it's critical to note that as a community, we're in very strong position because we already have infrastructure and resources in place to respond to emergencies. Because it is our responsibility to deliver continuity of service and certainty to our citizens in times of crisis. So I would say that that's the position that we always start from. Obviously, every emergency that we go into, the new information that comes and the factors and variables are different in any emergency situation. And so that's where then we navigate through responding to the new information as it arises. Sometimes that new information comes daily, sometimes it changes hourly. I will say at this point, really the focus of the municipality has been following the cues, particularly from the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and responding in kind so that we're in close alignment with the federal protocols and specifically the provincial protocols. I will say, obviously, I think in terms of both the short and long-term consequences, I would say that there's a couple areas of concern. The primary focus, and I can't emphasize enough, is virus mitigation, and that's why we're engaging in closures and social distancing. So that's step one. But now that closures, particularly closures, you know, we've seen closures obviously in the public sector, but in the private sector, the economic consequences of pandemic are starting to hit very close to home. And so I think in looking in navigating questions from our local citizens as well as from businesses, the question has been, you know, well, what type of relief for businesses is there? How will I access EI? And obviously we want to mitigate citizen fears and concerns with respect to that. I think, and any conversations I've had either with local MPs, with the Premier, really that is, as we continue on virus mitigation, now we start looking to the next step, which is economic relief. I would say that most of that economic relief will come either from the federal or provincial orders of government. The city's emergency operations will also look at ways that we can help mitigate the economic consequences for our citizens. But in terms of emergency management, really every additional expense associated with COVID-19 is calculated very meticulously as we modify our operations as necessity dictates. And then we work through the province in terms of their relief that will come from us. At this point, you know, and we're working closely with the province. We're not in a situation yet, but obviously, if we need to, for example, open shelter or expand shelter, that will be consequential, and we'll work closely with the government on that. Declaring provincial or local states of emergency also allows for a greater sharing of resources. I will say that we're in very strong position on that front at this time, but again, that could change because there could be a new situation in the coming days where all of a sudden a building is needed or other types of infrastructure equipment are needed. So in some respects, I would say we're in a very strong position today around the sharing of whether it's personnel or other infrastructure. That's limited in scope at this time, but that may change depending on the pandemic in the coming days and weeks.
So we're going to close out tonight's briefing. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And as Mayor Veer and EOC Director Karen Madden have referred, if you have questions, please visit our website at www.reddeer.ca or please phone our call center. Thank you.